Hi everyone. So today I wanted to do a video on eating disorders and moving out or living on your own. So what I mean is, if you've lived with your parents for your entire life and all of a sudden you're given the responsibility of actually living on your own and, being an adult, because it can be pretty scary. The reason I wanted to tackle this issue was because this was kind of my most recent obstacle that I faced to do with my eating disorder, and I did have a little bit of a relapse for a few months, and it was really hard. So I thought I'd do a video about it because it's fresh in my mind. So some of the good things about moving out is that you're away from your triggers lots of times. I don't know about most people, but for me personally, a lot of my triggers for my eating disorder had to do with my living environment, and particularly my mom. Obviously I love her dearly, but she had a lot of the kind of similar issues as me, like kind of bad body image issues and control over her food, and constantly talking about how much she ate, and constantly stressing out about gaining weight, and that totally stressed me out and triggered me basically. So lots of times, if your triggers are around your family, then moving out could be a really good thing. It's also kind of a fresh start, which can motivate you to do well, because all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, I'm responsible now, I'm doing well in recovery, and it's time for me to step it up and be even more of an adult. And it can be motivating. It can feel kind of good. And it's kind of like a rite of passage. All of a sudden you can say that you can feel like an adult. Some of the cons, though, around this issue is that this probably will increase your stress, particularly around the time when you are moving out, because you're like, oh my God, what if I'm going to mess up? There's a lot of pressure from your family probably, and from your peers and people who love you and want you to do well. There's a lot of pressure for them to see you succeed, and this pressure can lead to more stress and can make you feel pretty scared that you'll fall back into old routines and old habits. For me personally, that creates a lot of anxiety, and it actually caused me personally to sabotage my successes so far, because I just couldn't take all the anxiety and all the stress there was around actually doing well and being an adult, and I just kind of gave in and said, screw it, I'll just mess it all up, so I can just not have to deal with the fear of myself anymore. So you can just let your eating disorder take over. And that's kind of, obviously that's not a good thing, and it can happen. There's also pressure for me. There was pressure to be the best version of myself. All of a sudden, I had moved out of my parents' house into a totally different city, starting a new program, a new school program, and I felt like I needed to step it up. I felt like I needed to be thinner. I felt like I needed to be prettier. I felt like I needed to be more social, more likable, and all these things. And that can create pressure for myself and for you guys. It can make you feel pressure to, for me, it caused me to restrict more, which leads back into the whole eating disorder cycle of, restricting and then binging and purging and then restricting some more and so on. I'm looking at some notes here, so that's why I'm looking down. Also, if you are making an effort to see new people and to make new friends, it can create situations where you're drinking a lot, or you're eating more, or there's social situations where you don't have as much control over what's going on, and you may gain a little bit of weight, and that can create a lot of anxiety, because you're like, you need to offset the gaining of the weight. And another bad thing is that you're losing some of the accountability that you had and some of the support system. So if you were living with your parents, you were accountable to them a lot of times, and they were keeping track of your of what point you were at in your eating disorder recovery, and you had a support system in place. You might have been seeing a therapist in your area, and if you're not living in that area anymore, you're losing a lot of that support system. And also, if you are living alone and you're moving out and not moving in with anybody else, it's easy to just let it go, because there is no one there to be accountable to, and all of a sudden you're kind of like, it also makes you be all up in your head. If you're alone all the time, you start thinking too much and letting kind of the eating disorder take control over your mind. And those are all cons. I know there's a lot more cons than pros. I mean, the pros obviously is, the greatest thing is just being an adult and actually being able to live on your own and having responsibilities over your own actions. But all the cons are the scary part. So, what do you do in these situations? And I came up with kind of a list of all the things that maybe I did and some of the things that I should have done that I didn't do that I feel would have helped me not relapse when I was in this process of moving out and moving into a new place. I think moving in with other people would really, really help, having a roommate. I moved out on my own first, and it was really difficult because, like I said, I got all up in my head. Like, I would spend hours alone trying to study or whatever, and just the eating disorder thoughts would just come creeping through. And if your apartment's pretty small because you're living on your own, it can get a little claustrophobic, and it's just like, it's just too much sometimes. So moving in with other people can be nice because you don't have time to think about your eating disorder. Because you're living with other people. Maybe you can't indulge in all the behaviors you would indulge in if you were living with other people, because there's someone there that you don't want them to feel uncomfortable around you. And so it makes you get a little bit less, makes you not think about it so much, because I think that's one of the biggest problems with people with eating disorders too, is that we think about it all the time. It's just like, you just need a break, right? So living with someone can definitely help. Before you move, you should set up a support system of some kind. Before I moved, I made sure that I signed up for some free groups in my area at a really nice place in Toronto. It's called Sheena's Place, and where I could go and work through some of my problems and some of my issues. And that definitely helped get me out of my relapse for sure. Also, setting up appointments with a psychologist ahead of time just to have some sort of support system back in place. If you're if you're seeing a therapist, make sure you get a new one in the new area. What else? Also, just don't beat yourself up all the time. That's the other problem. I'm constantly like, oh no, I need to succeed. Why am I not doing better? And I'll just beat myself up. And if you start messing up, it can actually sabotage things even further, because you have one bad day and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm a horrible person. Your confidence goes down and you just go right back into the eating disorder. I know for me that happens. So one trick that I learned at these support groups that I go to is think of your 6-year-old self. Think of yourself when you're 5 or 4 or 6. And think, would you tell that 6-year-old version of yourself the things that you tell yourself in your head now? Would you call them ugly? Would you call them, fat and all those mean things? Would you treat them the way you treat yourself now? And the answer should be and probably is no. You would nurture them and have compassion, and just try to nurture that side of yourself, the side that's kind of struggling and is kind of still a little kid, and just try to be compassionate. It's also easy. It's a good thing to call home or talk to friends, or if you're living alone and you're all up in your head, it's really easy to just call someone and have a nice conversation with a good friend, someone who can get you out of that mindset. What helps me a lot is if I feel really pressured. This is particularly for people going into a really stressful situation like in school or work. If I feel really, really pressured to be good at what I'm doing and to do better and people with eating disorders are often perfectionists, it really helps me to think, and this might not help a lot of people, but it helps me to think like that no one gives a crap. No one gives a crap if I succeed or if I lose, because most of the people that care about me will love me no matter what, even if I fail or if I succeed. And the people that I'm accountable to at school, like my supervisor or people, teachers that I'm taking classes with, they don't really care about you as much. And so as soon as you start thinking of yourself, it's not the end of the world that you don't, get your master's, you don't get your PhD, or you fail a test or whatever. As soon as you start thinking of that, the pressure's kind of off. All of a sudden you're like, okay, well, I'm not that pressured really. It's not the end of the world if I fail at this one thing. So that really helps me. And like I said too before, you're going to be going into new social situations, making new friends, and there might be a lot of drinking involved, or a lot more eating, or eating of, unhealthy foods or whatever, foods you wouldn't normally have touched, but now that you're a recovered individual, you are willing to be a lot more, open to situations like that. So be prepared for a little bit of weight gain. If you're exercising and stuff, keep up with your exercise, and just try to eat well and try to stick with your meal plans and all that kind of stuff. But if you end up going outside the box a little bit to be a social person and to live your life, it's okay to gain a little bit of weight. It's not the end of the world. So don't freak out so much about weight gain. Just be prepared for that in case it does happen, so that you don't go back into old routines of like, oh my gosh, these jeans aren't fitting. I need to lose some weight, because I still have issues with that all the time, and I think every person does, even if you're not eating disordered, because you want to look nice in the clothes you have. But just keep in mind that some things are not in your control, and it's better to be living your life the way that you want to be living your life than to stress out so much over a few pounds and then to go right back into old cycles of restricting and binging and purging. So yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that. These are all kind of my own opinions on moving out on your own, like I said, just because it's the nearest life-altering event in my life. So yeah, if you have any more questions, let me know. If you have any suggestions for videos I should film, let me know. Okay, bye.